Oh, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the MrWarrenHayes Show. I, of course, am MrWarrenHayes. Today is the 9th of June. This is the day we're recording. Might get this on another date, maybe June 10. But you know what? The important thing is that we're all here to talk about professional wrestling. Who cares about space, time? It's all relevant, irrelevant, and relative. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you all very much for joining me today here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes and listening to the podcast. Listen, straight off the bat, here's what you do. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel. I know everyone asks to do this, but you know what? Everyone asks because it really does help. So if you do that, it really helps. And on top of that, if you leave a comment in the video, to chat me up about wrestling, because I love to talk about wrestling, that also helps out a lot too. And I'll interact with you. We'll ask some questions. We'll chat with each other. It'll be a good time. And look, so many topics that we can talk about. Like, you know, I go over this week's Dynamite quite a bit. What are your thoughts on the All-Atlantic Championship? Oh, I bet you know. I bet you have some thoughts on the All-Atlantic Championship. What about the matches on Dynamite? They were Dynamite. I reviewed Hell in a Cell. Why don't you leave me some thoughts about Hell in a Cell? What do you think about Cody wrestling with an injury? Pretty sure you have thoughts on that as well. All in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast application, thank you very much as well. Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review. Spotify, a 5-star rating. And you know what? I'm going to open up some discussion areas on Spotify as well. So if you're listening on Spotify, hey, I'm going to go tippity tap and go, hey, I'll leave you some questions and we can interact there as well. All sorts of places to interact. It's fantastic. And I really appreciate it. And thank you very much for being here, joining me here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. Don't forget to check out Bell to Bells at, which is your women's wrestling wire, of course, at belltobells.com, BELLTOBELLEES.com, youtube.com/belltobells for all our interviews, or follow us on Twitter at belltobells. That stuff is all fantastic. So, hey, tonight, I didn't want to go long, but I went long. What are you going to do? Hell in a Cell recap. I talk about Cody's injury. Going to talk a bit about what's going on in NXT, especially in regards to Rok-C and her victory. We're going to do a bit of an update on the Kota Ibushi situation and break down AEW Dynamite from this week, which was a good show that I enjoyed and lots of newsworthy elements in there. So sit back, enjoy. Thank you very much for being here. Well, I don't think we can go any further right now without me saying something nice about Bill Goldberg.
MrWarrenHayes has 52 nice things to say about Goldberg.
Now, in an interview this week, Toni Storm said about her time in WWE that, quote, "They just crushed my love for wrestling." Now, that's something that never happened to Bill because WWE couldn't crush what wasn't there in the first place.
MrWarrenHayes has 52 nice things to say about Goldberg.
Was that even a nice thing? Was that? Well, I think it counts. You know, Bill, because what I'm trying to say is Bill was never crushed by WWE, right? That's to his testament. Thank you. You're way too kind. You're way too kind. Let's do the weekly wrestling inspection. Here we go. There we go. Fantastic. What should we start with? Let's start with Hell in a Cell. How about that? Let's go right ahead and start with, let's just start with Hell in a Cell. Mr. Fantastic has joined us. He's here for the very harsh reviews that I'm going to give Hell in a Cell. No, surprisingly, here's the thing. I think there are some valid criticisms, and a lot of them are directed at how things are booked, how things are managed, the storylines, the production. Not necessarily the talent themselves. I know how, handcuffed the talent can be sometimes. I'm no dummy. I know how this works. You're just a WWE hater. I'm not just a WWE hater. It's easy to get on their case. Don't get me wrong. I just wanted to point that out. Bugs me. The kind of thing that bugs me. Because overall, here's the thing. Overall, what did I tell you guys last week when I previewed Hell in a Cell? I said, Hell in a Cell, it's a 2-match card. What did it turn out to be? A 2-match card. There's an extra one that you're like, it's not bad, it's pretty fun. But the show inevitably was a 2-match show, and we got exactly that. 2 very good matches, one excellent match, I'd say. One that was a lot of fun, and the rest that you sort of you just shrug at and you're like, am I watching Monday Night Raw? Let's start talking about the matches then. Let's start with AK Germany 96, who left us a super chat. Thank you very much, AK. He says the women's triple threat was fantastic, top tier. Well, see, I got my notebook here, and that's exactly where we're going to start talking about. And I agree with him. This was a very, very, very well done triple threat match. Well, like in the structure that WWE presents them, right? Where it's always 2 people, then one person comes in, bumps one out, and then these 2 have their go. And then boom. Like it's always the same pattern, right? It's nothing shocking in that, in how the match is structured. But seeing these women work together, and especially in a context where we're seeing Bianca Belair and Asuka in this context, which feels really fresh, and just seeing Asuka here, seeing Asuka wrestle again was such a breath of fresh air. And it's not because Bianca Belair is stale, and it's not because Becky Lynch is awful. Au contraire, wonderful, talented women who deliver in high pressure situations. But this is what I realized after not seeing Asuka wrestle for so long and seeing, the top tier women and then, the rest of the mid card women. There is no one on that women's roster who wrestles like Asuka. Absolutely no one. No one who brings that Joshi spice. And I'm not going as far as to say that she wrestles Joshi style in WWE. They would never let her do that. Do you know what I'm saying? They would never let her do that. She does bring that edge, that fierceness, that strike exchange. It's not even an exchange. I was gonna call you can't when she was backfisting Becky Lynch. Becky was just taking it. She was there like a punching sack, and Asuka was just laying into her. And the speed with which she moves and the crispness of how she moves themselves. A lot of use of the word move here, but I know y'all are bearing with me. There's no one on the roster who wrestles like her, and it took this time away, I feel, and for her to be back on a big stage, on a big time match like this one, to be like, yeah, okay, Asuka fucking rules. And we had forgotten about how much Asuka rules. And and I've been through this phase. I've done it. I was there when it all happened. But, I'm not here complaining about, but this is not the Asuka of NXT, the undefeated Asuka. Asuka will never be that again. And she's moved on. WWE's moved on. We have to move on with it. That was a beautiful, precious moment in time, that we can all embrace and hug. But I'm definitely not going to sit here and say, oh, what a shame they fucked her up. They didn't fuck her up. They maybe mismanaged her, but Asuka has had an uncharacteristically successful tenure in the women's division. When you look at everyone else who's been around during the four horsewomen era of WWE main roster, who else outside of part-timer Ronda Rousey, who else has had this level of sustained success as her? Not Carmella, I don't even know who's still around from that. Not Natalya. Natalya's had more valleys than mountains, right? Asuka has been fantastic. And here's a thought that just pops into my head. Is there another Japanese-born wrestler who has had this level of success in WWE? And I'm really thinking hard right now. And chat, you probably have maybe some tips here. Mr. Fuji, but we're talking old school. And he was never champion. He was like, I don't think there has ever been a Japanese-born professional wrestler who has had as much success in WWE than Asuka has. I dare you to find anyone else. Not even Shinsuke. Yeah, look, and good for her. That is definitely a feather in her cap there. But back to the match, right? Just great stuff. And showcasing the strengths from all three of the women, right? Becky with this. One of the reasons Becky is so fun to watch is because she's explosive, right? And because she just pops out of nowhere and she starts, doing shit and pulling some stuff off. And it's like, that's what made her so successful as a babyface. And that's why I feel sometimes her heel offense, where she has to draw heat from the crowd, and I think it suits her less, right? Because the babyface has to have the explosive babyface comeback offense, and you guys know how this works. I think that her offense style benefits her as a babyface more than anything else. But this was very good. We saw a lot of strength moves from Bianca, who still is able to hang with these women. And just able to hang with Becky Lynch, who is a driving force of the division. Asuka, who is like not only in WWE, but an accomplished internationally trained wrestler. I'm still floored at how much Asuka just wrecked Becky Lynch with those strikes. It was amazing. That jogging vertical suplex that Bianca Belair did, where she started doing, I was like, holy shit. Like, it was a lot of fun, good drama. And I think that the only thing that I feel like the ending got a little convoluted. I think there was a little bit of steam that was lost before they got to the ending, but I really liked it. And the glam slam by Bianca Belair right on the corner turnbuckle using Asuka, that was just insane. I loved it. It showcased Asuka's ferocity, which I think is her top trait. It showcased Becky Lynch as just being like this jack of all trades, and showcased Bianca's strength and her presence as champion. Good stuff. Great opener, which led us into Bobby Lashley defeating Omos and MVP in a 2-on-1 championship match. When you say you're have we ever chatted about the logic, the long time territory logic of the second card on the match? Have I ever taught? It's fairly well known that a booker would usually book as his second match on a card a match that he wasn't sure which way it was going to go, right? Where he's trying some new guys out, he's not sure about one guy, and he just wants to put him in a position, somewhere that's not necessarily the curtain jerker, the one that, to start off the show, and not too far down the crowd, just in case the match doesn't connect, Second match of the card usually was that. And sometimes I know that type of logic has expired over the years, because usually, you'd never start a card with a hot match. You'd keep your hot match. You'd start your show with the lower card matches as people come in, go to concessions, take their seats, and to warm up to the main event. Nowadays, you start with a hot match that to get people in. So, but sometimes I still think about, well, okay, they're putting this match in the second slot. What were they expecting? Were they really saying to themselves, this could go great as it could, or this could go as great as it could go very poorly? And I don't think there was any other outcome for this match than Bobby Lashley, MVP, and Omos being just a bad match. And this is how it was. Now this, I mean, I don't even know what kind of story they were telling anymore. Because as you know, I've been invested since the WrestleMania match to follow through on this feud. I've been giving you regular weekly updates, right? On this feud here that's been fairly prominent since WrestleMania. So because it's main evented. They've had on Raw. It's had cage matches on Raw. They've given this a lot of gas. But this feud was Omos and Bobby Lashley at first. They added MVP as a mouthpiece for Omos, which I thought was a fantastic idea. But is it me? Or did this feud sort of become Bobby Lashley and MVP? Hasn't Omos didn't he become a bit of an accessory, like a second tier kind of operator here? Maybe, it's kind of strange. Kind of strange. But, Omos is a big dude wrestling in WWE, and he does big dude wrestler things, and I don't know what to tell you. I'm convinced the guy has a lot more to offer. I think he probably has a lot more under his belt, but they're booking him like a big man, so he acts like a big man, and it kind of stinks. I didn't like this match. Cedric Alexander has to get involved for a reason, because Bobby Lashley, I don't know. Bobby Lashley spears MVP. He spears Omos, and he puts MVP in the Hurt Lock, and everyone cheers. Goes, oh, Omos is protected. He did not take the fall. He is still a monster of man. I'm like, who cares? Like the guy literally has no heat. I mean, all this feud's been washed, if we're being honest. It's all been terrible. So then I tune in to Raw this week to watch the Bobby Lashley segment. Because as I said, I'm invested. I'm going to see this one through. And he has a chit chat on the microphone where he says, Bobby Lashley says, essentially, and that's it. He puts over how he's glad he heard MVP and that it hurt MVP. And he doesn't even mention Omos anymore. And he says, I'm glad I've got, MVP. And now I'm going to put him and Omos behind me in my rearview mirror. And I'm like, yay, I'm done. My bid is over. Finally. I can move on. The feud is over. Bobby Lashley said so. But the wild thing is, Bobby Lashley is now back in a feud for the U.S. title? A U.S. title that he never lost, and that he has to fight the very definition of mid-carder. Because a lot of people are like, Austin Theory. I mean, from one to another, what are you going to do? Austin Theory, the world champion. I don't know, man. Might be one of these world champions that they try to shove down your throat, but I don't see it. Of course, look, the kid is in his early 20s. He's got so many years to perfect and season all sorts of shit, but it's wild that the year that Bobby Lashley spent as U.S. champion was building him to become the challenger to Drew McIntyre, right? And he defeated Drew McIntyre, lost the U.S. title in a triple threat without getting pinned, and then defeated Drew McIntyre, and now Lashley's back on the mid card. So if they do the same thing again, where Lashley just bulldozes through this geek, takes the title back, and then continues his reign of terror over the mid card, I think it's great. It'll make sense, but they probably won't do that because they don't care about history. Anyway, this match stunk. Kevin Owens versus Ezekiel. Well, Kevin Owens defeated Ezekiel. The match was well worked. I think Ezekiel lacks pizzazz. I don't think I think the gimmick, I think the thing is funny. I don't know how much longer they can carry this, especially if Kevin Owens drops out of this feud. Because Kevin Owens does a lot of heavy lifting in these situations as far as getting feuds over. But Ezekiel lacks connection, star power. I don't know what you want to call it. He has this weird charisma about him, but I really think it worked better as Elias. I don't know. And look, here's the thing, right? As I said, I don't watch WWE as much. I pop in when things happen, when people direct me to it. I'm essentially a casual viewer of World Wrestling Entertainment. And isn't that what they want? Right? Isn't that what they want from their viewership? They want the casuals. Well, here I am. I am a casual viewer of WWE. So, as a casual viewer of WWE, who knows, about the Ezekiel Elias is my brother thing, because I see it on Twitter, and I did see the original promo on it, and I thought I thought it was pretty clever. I thought it was funny. What was the point of this match? Because they were sort of trying to give it stakes where Kevin Owens is going to beat the truth out of him. And I'm like, oh, okay. So essentially, like, some form of torture? Like, beat the truth out of him? And so again, as a casual viewer who's not 100% invested in the storyline, I'm looking at the match and I'm looking at Kevin Owens going, "Your name is Elias," and I'm like, is he supposed to? Is it? If Elias loses, he has to admit that he's Elias. Is this the stipulation? Because I didn't quite get it. But it's like this meta thing. Like it felt like they were hammering it too much, like it was a stipulation, but there was no real what's the word I'm looking for? There was no real stipulation, right? There's no real stipulation to this match. Kevin Owens could have won or lost. We still have Ezekiel. So again, as a casual viewer, I'm like, I don't understand why this story is so important. Why couldn't they just be fighting each other because they're pro wrestlers, kind of thing? See, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about when I tell you guys that in-ring storytelling greater than buffoonery storytelling. I don't know. Jason Major, nice to see you. Welcome. Nice to see you. I don't want to call it that buffoonery, but this is what I mean when I say that what the story you tell in ring is much more important than whatever goobly gobbliness is happening around it. Because break down wrestling to its basic core, and what it is two fighters, pro fighters, who are paid to fight each other, want to get a win over the other guy. Why? Because if you get a win, you get a bigger share of the purse than the loser. And then eventually you go up in the ranks, and then you can challenge for championships, and champions make more money than people who aren't champs. It's that simple. Honestly, that's what wrestling is. So when I chit chat with folks who tell me what's the story of this match, especially when it comes to New Japan, what's the story of the match? Well, they're competitors, they're fighters, and they're going to tell a story inside the ring on how one guy is going to make it to the end of the match to defeat the other guy. That's how you tell a wrestling story. I'm here watching Ezekiel and Kevin Owens, and the story is getting in the way of me appreciating what these guys are doing because I'm coming in ignorant as to the whole story. I know what it's about, but I haven't been following the story week after week. So I sit down to watch the match, and I'm like, I don't understand why Kevin Owens is so obsessed with Ezekiel not calling himself Elias anymore. I don't know. And is the result of the match going to reveal the name? Is Maury Povich going to come out with an envelope and go, Ezekiel, you are Elias, and then, kind of thing. Thank goodness I had an envelope just there for that visual gag. Yes, it gets in the way of shit. It in this circumstance gets in the way of appreciating the match. It is the complete opposite with the main event, which I'm going to get to. Whereas whatever happened around the build, essentially, to get to this match, did not hamper my appreciation of what they were doing, because they were telling a story inside the ring, something that made it compelling for me, just sitting down, plopping my ass down to watch a wrestling match that I have no investment in, other than these are two very, very, very good wrestlers. I'm sure they're going to put on something entertaining, and they did. Whereas I sit down and watch Kevin Owens and Ezekiel, and Kevin Owens is a wrestler I love, that I adore. And all I'm doing there, and I'm thinking, why is he so mad? It's getting in my way of appreciating it. So that's why I tell you guys, the stories, when people are like, what's the story of the match? The story of the match should always be on its basic level. One dude or dudette wants to beat the other dude or dudette to make more money. Anything else is gravy. It's build, but it should not come and hamper one's appreciation of a match. And here, all I could think about was, why is Kevin Owens so mad? And ultimately, we will always remember the matches where you can sit down without having to go back and watch 6 weeks of build or what the fuck. Sit down, watch a match, and enjoy it. Now, I'm not saying that build doesn't help when properly done. Build and story outside can enhance a match. Absolutely. Countless examples of that. But the opposite, it's seldom in a way that bars you from enjoying the match. If you have a good, proper build that elevates the match, you can be completely ignorant of the build, sit down, watch the match. If you go back and watch Eddie Kingston and Chris Jericho from Revolution 2022, you don't need to understand the build. You don't need to have sat there through, their promo exchanges. The match fucking rules. They just start laying into each other. It's violent. It's gritty. You understand it. You understand Eddie Kingston doesn't like the guy. That's it. That's all you need to know. No one started like, oh, he stole my jacket and then sold it to an orphanage, and I hate orphans. Anyway, that's it. Okay, so well worked was Ezekiel versus Kevin Owens. But I don't know what you do moving forward with this. And honestly, the ceiling to the Ezekiel gimmick is coming very, very quickly, because the audience is not all that into it. Judgment Day, Damian Priest, Edge, and Rhea Ripley defeated AJ Styles, Finn Balor, and Liv Morgan. I thought this was a lot of fun. I thought this was a fun 6-man tag in WWE that doesn't happen all that often, that I felt that I felt belonged on a big show, because they do the 6-man tags on Raws and SmackDowns and all that. But this one felt special. And I think everyone worked really, really hard. I thought this was enjoyable. Far from being a match of the year, don't get me wrong. But I thought it was a lot of fun. And broke a lot of usual tropes that they do with their six person mixed tag match. Because there's this annoying... the annoying mixed tag stipulation is annoying. Don't you guys? I can't be the only one who thinks it's just annoying, but I think it's well done. They got creative in some spots here to because sometimes I'm like, AJ. Or no, Finn was babyface in peril for a good part of this match here. And just go tag and live. It doesn't matter. When the women go for the hot tags, I'm like, it doesn't really matter, does it? I don't know. But this was fine. I feel like it's a moot point now to discuss this match after what happened on Monday. Now that Edge has been kicked out. Like, this is... I have no understanding. There's a report going around. And apparently they want to add a supernatural Edge to the Judgment Day, and Edge was against it. He didn't want anything to do with it. And apparently that's not the reason. It's totally not because Cody Rhodes is gone for 6 months. Absolutely not. But look, if anything, I think it's weird because they put so much effort into this stable. This is absolutely a slapdash decision, right? There's no thought process that's been put into here. This isn't long-term storytelling. This is like, well, we got to change because either Edge is mad or Edge is injured, because that was a thing too. That's a report that he has a minor fracture to his ocular region. So it could be a lot of stuff. But holy shit, they put so much effort into this, and now it's just like, well, Finn Balor's in now, a guy that could not beat us. We're making him our leader. Well, if you can't beat him, join him, right? I guess. Which makes me think, if they're going to bring the supernatural element back, guys and gals, I hope you're excited for the return of the Demon. Because that's, outside of Bray Wyatt coming back, I think this is the path. Maybe we'll finally get that Sister Abigail Demon match that we all craved. Madcap Moss defeated Happy Corbin in a no holds barred match. Even as plunder matches go, this was so incredibly basic. I mean, look, good for Riddick Moss for getting his pushy push. Riddick Moss's push is currently better than Ricochet's push as Intercontinental Champion, so good for him. I am completely uninterested by anything that happened in this match. I think, even as plunder matches go, this was terribly basic. Austin Theory defeated Mustafa Ali to retain the WWE United States Championship. I guess I had expectations for this match. I guess, because I feel like it under-delivered. And it ended up feeling very flat. Felt like a Monday Night Raw match. And I don't think either guy really put their best foot forward. Mustafa Ali had a great tilt-a-whirl DDT. I think his STF looks great. That slingshot Spanish fly thing that Austin Theory does is cool. But very generic. Very, very generic. And now they're already moving on from Mustafa Ali. There's theories moving on to Bobby Lashley. So, you had the finessers going, oh, Mustafa, we'll put you on TV. We'll give you something to do. How about a U.S. title run? Oh, plans change, brother. I don't understand. I don't understand the Mustafa Ali story at this point. I really don't. J.S. Brown, nice to see you. Welcome to the chat, sir. This leads us to the main event, where Cody Rhodes defeated Seth Rollins. What should we talk about first? The injury or the match? I think we have to talk about the injury first, right? Hell of a pectoral tear. Crazy. I have not seen many pectoral tears in my lifetime. I had someone who was a parademic tell me, ooh, that's a bad one. And it was, and it looked terrible. Now, there's been a lot of hot takes in regards to Cody winning, right? And we're putting a lot of emphasis on, my God, what an effort! Look at how banged up he was. Look at how smashed up he was, and this is this guy's love of the business. He wanted to get in there and wrestle. I think those opinions are valid, to a degree. I feel like, again, maybe this is me being an old timer, and it could be. At some point, I try to relate to the kids. I try to use their lingo. I occasionally dab in the street. But I realize that, there's a lot of things that I feel we don't learn our lesson on in wrestling. And I think that by putting what Cody did on a pedestal is sending us back many years of transformation of the business to another environment where wrestlers are going to feel like they're going to have to work regardless of how bad they're hurt or injured. And this in the 90s, and this is well documented. I'm not going to teach anyone anything here. Led to this idea of working with injuries, things that weren't treated, led to a lot of guys slipping into prescription drug addiction, just plain old drug addiction, alcohol, sometimes a mixture of two, all three, sometimes worse shit. And what did that lead to? A rash of very, very young deaths, suicides, so on and so forth. And a lot of these situations were provoked because of the need to dull the pain, because no one wanted to lose their spot, because that was the nature of the business. You worked even though you were injured. I've spoken to a few wrestlers since I've been doing the podcast, and whenever the topic of injuries come up, I oftentimes hear the same thing, and I listen a lot to what the wrestlers have to say. As a wrestler, you will work hurt, but you should not work injured, because that's how you start taking time off your career. This is how you start putting your body through things that it might not be able to recover from. And there is a legitimate history of exactly that happening, of guys not wanting to lose their bookings, or they're standing with a promoter, whatever. And then, no, I'm going to work injured nonetheless. Because if I don't work, I'm not going to get paid. I'm going to lose my spot, so on and so forth. This is what Cody wants to do to put himself over, is to a degree his business, and I'll agree with that. He did dunk himself onto a a towering inferno of a table, moonsaults and whatnot. I mean, but I honestly think this was irresponsible. And I think it was irresponsible for WWE to let that happen. Oh, what a great story. You can tell that story. You can tell any injury story you want in wrestling because you're storytelling, right? You're making shit up. You're supposed to be able to tell these grandiose stories. So why did you feel that why did you feel like this would make a good story if all your stories are already so good? I think it's a testament to the difficulty and the often inability that WWE has to get its wrestlers over has to do with its inability at this, the storytelling that they're supposed to be so good at. I think it's on one end. I think that's the main problem, because then you add this factor of reality to it, and then suddenly it becomes compelling. Then you're like, oh, this is such good shit, pal. But it's also very real. And I don't want to watch wrestlers die in a ring. Not that Cody was in any danger of dying, but I don't want to see them completely destroy and maim their body, which is already injured, already in a situation where you should not go and compete. I don't want to see them worsen things. The fact that WWE let that happen, that they let him go out there, that's a huge red flag to me. And if you think that this does not create some kind of weird precedent or a return of a precedent in the locker room, you're fucking wrong. Because I do not know how on one hand you can be a WWE fan and applaud Roman Reigns for taking time off during the pandemic so that he wouldn't, because of his weakened immune system, and wouldn't put himself in danger. Oh, yeah. Right? If on one hand you'd applaud that, but then on the other hand, be actually super okay with Cody destroying his body even more for fucking pro wrestling, for a fucking match. I don't know how, and I don't think they're false equivalencies. Because in both situations, you should have the common sense to be like, you know what? I can't do this right now. Because this could have long-term detrimental effects to my career. Now, am I surprised that WWE did this? Of course fucking not. This is the company that had a man fall to his death in a ring and decided to continue pushing on with the show. So I'm not surprised. They're like, yeah, this Cody injury, that's good shit, pal, let's do it. Cody was okay with it. Who cares? Lots of wrestlers were okay with lots of bullshit that they did for their promoters, for their promotions, just to make sure that they held on to their spot, that they continued to get paid. They did a lot of things that they were okay with. Jeff Hardy was clearly okay. That everyone was telling me back when he was doing the alcoholic angle with Sheamus, back when I was covering SmackDown. Everyone was telling me, don't worry, Warren, he's okay with it. It's fine. He's okay, so it's fine. It's not fine. I would be lying to you that the idea behind this injury did not add to the match, that it did not add to the gravitas of this match, that made this match an excellent pro wrestling match, that brought out the top qualities in Cody Rhodes as a storyteller, as an in-ring storyteller, coupled by Seth Rollins, who is maligned by many, sometimes out of his own fault, but maligned by many, but oftentimes disregarded as how good a pro wrestler he is. This match ruled. and it ruled more because of the injury. I'd lie. I'd be bald-faced lying to you. But it is one fucking wrestling match on a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. And I am much more worried about the health of Cody Rhodes, about the precedent it sets, about the vision that this will bring forward. Because now there is not a single producer backstage in WWE who will look at someone with an injury, with a torn something or a broken whatever or a sprained thing, who will not say, yeah, but Cody wrestled. There's not one who is not going to say that. Maybe one, maybe two, but you know what I'm talking about. This is something that is going to be brought up again. Maybe not to everyone, but it will be brought up again at some point to someone. And it is this precedent that makes it so fucking dangerous, because the last 2 to 3 decades, medical support for pro wrestlers has improved tremendously. Medical science in sports has improved tremendously and is being applied in wrestling, which is why wrestlers have careers that go into their 40s and their 50s in some cases. Whereas in the past, no one, you'd be in your 40s, you'd be doomed. You'd be shot. And it's not because suddenly everyone stopped doing roids. Of course it helped. But getting proper training, first and foremost, medical follow-ups, medical treatment, therapy, having time to rest your body. All these things that we've learned over the years, these are things that are good for a wrestler to have a prolonged career in pro wrestling. This kind of shit, it can set it back. It's a moment that we have to put a pin in, and I swear to God, I hope I'm wrong. I hope nothing more than to be so incredibly wrong that in 10 years, we'll pull up this episode of June 9, 2022, and people are going to be like, oh, Warren, you were worried for nothing. That's never happened again. Look, now wrestlers have beautiful careers into their 60s now, Warren. You're such a worry. Thank God. I hope so. But I followed this business long enough to know that I cast a doubt before I put any trust in any decision makers in this business. And as AK Germany 96 in the chat pointed out, from the company that gets upset about blood, indeed, I'm gonna be like, at least, bruises don't ooze. That's the thing. But that's, again, I would be hypocritical. It would be hypocritical for me to sit here and say this wasn't a better match because of it, because it was. It added to the drama. It added to the reality. But I feel this is a problem that WWE has. Its stories aren't compelling. The reality is what draws us in. And I think that's a system failure. Because if they had faith in everything they've set up, they wouldn't have needed to do this. They would have told Cody, no, Cody, stop insisting. We need you back soon. Stop dicking around. I can do this, boss. My dad would have done, I'm sorry, I can't get behind this shit. I really can't, and it is a dangerous precedent. And it's not even a precedent. It's bringing back weird old school mentalities. And I don't get it. I just don't get it. But I really like the match. I thought Cody and Seth are systematically having the best matches in WWE this year. Bianca and Becky at WrestleMania was extraordinary. But this series of 3 that Cody and Seth have had, some of the best stuff. Like, every match ruled for its own specific reason. Just great stuff. So yeah, Hell in a Cell, like I said, I feel like it's it's a 2-match card with a lot of purple bruises. Did you guys hear Apollo Crews is now on NXT? Did you hear about this? Apparently he's down in developmental again, and he's been moved there. Like, his roster position is there. Apollo Crews has been a bit of a mainstay on the MrWarrenHayes show. Older listeners, when I covered WWE more, will remember that I would always say, never get behind an Apollo Crews push. Never, ever, ever. Because no matter what they try to tell you, he will always be switched, transferred, buried. They'll do ignored, sent back to catering. There's no point. Every single time this man, every time there's a draft, is what I'm trying to say, he gets switched from brand to brand. There's only one time in his career that he hadn't been drafted to another brand since they started back doing that stuff in 2016. He was drafted to SmackDown in 2016. Then in 2017 was drafted to Raw, and he stayed there in 2018. Then was transferred to SmackDown in 2019. Then when they did the Superstar shakeup later on in 2019, he was sent back to Raw in the post-draft trades. Then in 2020, back to SmackDown. Then in 2021, back to Raw. Now it's 2022, and he's in NXT. And every single time, there's people out on the internet saying, oh, well, this will be a nice change of pace for Apollo Crews. It'll be a good time for him to shine. No, it never is. It never, ever, ever is. Because he gets sent back to catering. He gets buried. The longest strip of some kind of semblance of push was his Nigerian prince thing. Ultimately that lasted 8 months, like of an actual push with the IC title kind of thing. And that's it. There is no reason to get behind Apollo Crews. And it's not because Apollo Crews is not a talented guy. This is literally, and this is where a lot of people are unable to make the difference. This is not an Apollo Crews problem. This is a creative problem who for some reason never know what to do with the guy. Oh, we'll switch him here, we'll switch him there. And then commentary will tell you, oh, this is a guy, he's about to explode. He's bound to have a great year here on SmackDown, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, he's not having a great year. He's disappeared. And it's the same discourse every single time. And I see it on the internet where it's like, people are like, oh, this is a good change for him over on NXT. I'm like, this dude, all his entire WWE career has just been shifting around brands because it'll be a better move for his career. And it never is. And it bums me out because, and the reason why I get hot about it is because Apollo Crews is a good wrestler. It was, fucking Omos, I wouldn't give a shit. But he is a textbook definition of WWE not knowing what to do with the goods they have. Ridiculous. AK Germany 96 left a super chat. Thank you very much. Says, Commander Aziz can't catch a break. Aziz better than Omos. And yeah, that's right? Like, he's completely abandoned the gimmick, right, on NXT now, right? Gimmick has been completely abandoned, and Commander Aziz, Babatunde, Dabakato, whatever the hell they want to call him now, he hasn't followed, right? Well, Babatunde is hitting the bricks at the next round of releases. And mark my words, Babatunde is on the unemployment line at the next round of releases. Not that I enjoy it. What else are you going to do with the guy? When you have, like, AK Germany said, Omos, when you have another one, you have Veer, you have the Shanky. Is that still what they call him now? And they have him fucking dancing now like a fucking goof, right? You got all of that. There's no room for, and it's weird because this is the big man promotion. I was talking about this earlier in the Discord. You should join the Discord, by the way. I was talking about this in the Discord. This is the big man promotion. This is the promotion where the big men are supposed to thrive. They fired Braun Strowman, for Pete's sake. What possible future is there for Babatunde, for Commander Aziz, for Dabba-Kato in WWE? Congratulations to Rok-C. What do they call her now? Roxanne. What do they call her now? Roxanne Perez? No. Is that it? I don't know what they call her now. Rok-C, former Ring of Honor World Women's Champion. She won the first ever. They don't call her Barbara Ann. Go to hell. She won the first women's breakout tournament. The cursed tournament in NXT. The one that everyone who wins it ends up leaving, getting fired. Hopefully that's not even if Roxanne is great. Roxanne is great. Tiffany Stratton, though, is not. And it makes me wonder, like, this was the match clearly they were going for. Because Tiffany Stratton replaced Nikita Lyons. And I'm convinced that was the finals that they were going for. And Kristen can attest to this. We chatted a bit about it. It makes me wonder, had Nikita Lyons remained healthy throughout the tournament, would Rok-C still have won? Was she penciled in to win the tournament? Or was it Nikita? I'm curious about that. I'll tell you one thing for sure. It wasn't Tiffany Stratton. Because Tiffany Stratton is not ready to be shown on television. And if anyone tells you otherwise, they have no idea what they're talking about. No idea. Because our Rok-C, our Roxanne, she guided Tiffany Stratton through this match. Stratton forgot spots, blew one, but Rok-C kept her fucking cool and was calling audibles in the ring. What a goddamn pro. And you can go back and look at it. There's a sequence in the ropes. You can see it plain as day. Stratton doesn't know what to do. Rok-C calls her through it and they redo the spot. There's another spot where they're on the mat. Stratton, drawing a blank, clearly doesn't know what's happening. And Rok-C goes and puts her hand up to her mouth like this and starts calling spots. A pro! Tiffany Stratton, not ready! Do I think she stinks? I don't know. She's not ready. I'll tell you that much. Right now, she shouldn't be on TV. Rok-C, absolutely. Push this woman to the moon. And people telling me, what do you mean she's ready? She's not ready. This is the definition of not being ready to wrestle on television if you're blowing spots right and left. That's the very definition of being green. Now, is this Tiffany Stratton's fault? No. Tiffany Stratton is not trained as a wrestler. She's a gymnast. All right? You can tell by the way she wrestles. She doesn't have wrestling fundamentals. She doesn't strike. She doesn't collar and elbow tie up like a wrestler does. She's learning. Learning is the key word. I have no problems with people wanting to learn to be a pro wrestler. But when a promotion is trying to pass it off as the main event of this tournament, where this woman should be featured on TV in this capacity, I'm like, no, this is where I disconnect. This is where I tell y'all to hit the bricks. Get this woman off of television. You're supposed to be running house shows again. I don't know if I talked about this, but the fact that NXT is going to be running the Florida circuit again with their house shows is the best fucking thing for their oodles of green talent right now. To get them used to live crowds without the cameras, without having to perform, without having... And I heard they're taping, right? They're taping some NXTs now. Let's fucking go. Let's do it. Let's tape some NXTs. Let's go back to the black and gold era when they were on the network, when they tape a month's worth of NXT in one session in Full Sail. You got great, tightly packed episodes where you'd have a great open air, a great finisher, and some exhibition matches in between, some squash matches, so on and so on. Just a great balance of fantastic talent and talent to discover. Let's go. That's the formula that you should be doing. And then you can do all the editing you want. You can redo all the pre-tapes. You don't have to do live interviews. You can get rid of all that bullshit. Let's go. Help your talent out. This is supposed to be developmental. Nick Khan said it himself. It's developmental. We're going to go back to... So help your talent develop. Instead of putting them in these ungrateful situations where they're expected to perform on a level that will garner ratings on a Tuesday night, on a primetime slot, on a nationally distributed cable network. What are you talking about? It's ridiculous. So no, I look at Tiffany Stratton and I look at what she's doing and I'm like, nah, get her off TV. Not because she's awful. You know what the thing is I look at what she's doing and I'm like, she's comfortable in a ring. There's a couple of others right now on that roster. I'm like, they don't even have the they don't even have the naturals, not even the fundamentals. They don't even have the naturals. I think there's something to Tiffany Stratton, but she is far from a finished product. A far cry from a finished product. Toni Storm gave an interview earlier this week regarding her departure from WWE. She was invited on the sessions with Renee Paquette, and she talked about her departure from the company. I'm going to grab some quotes here from Figure 4 Online, Wrestling Observer. She says, quote here, I had some good times in WWE. It was cool at one point and then it wasn't. It changed and I didn't want anything to do with it, Storm said during the show. She continued to say that everything changed for her when she was moved from NXT to the main roster. Quote, my main goal in wrestling was to be on Raw or SmackDown main roster WWE TV. And then I got there and figured it out pretty soon. I realized that this is just not going to work out. But also, I'm 26 and I want to have a really good time in this job. I want to have a really good career and I want to enjoy part of it. And I just wasn't enjoying it for so long. I abruptly quit. I woke up that morning having no idea that I was going to quit. She also said that the frequent talent releases in WWE contributed to her unhappiness in the company. Quote, let's face it, they just fire people left, right, and center out of the blue. I could be fired next week, and then it's like, what's the point? It just felt very pointless, to be honest, and it's been hard to convey that, especially to fans, especially to people that just aren't in this business and will never understand. Storm would continue to say that she doesn't have any hard feelings to WWE, however. Quote, I'm not mad. I'm not angry at WWE. I don't have anything against them. It just wasn't the fit. I'm sure they've got bigger fish to fry than me. Why did they care? People get let go from that place constantly. People move around constantly. It doesn't matter if I'm there, but what matters is I'm not having a very good time. And she talked a bit about the frustrations that built up, in regards to the day that she quit. And she ended up saying this, and I quote once more, I didn't feel appreciated, and I felt like they, at times, didn't have much respect for me. I feel like over time, they just crushed my love for wrestling. It wasn't even wrestling anymore. You're not even allowed to say wrestling. I thought my whole purpose in life was to go to WWE, but then over time I realized it's just pro wrestling that I love. It's not a company that I love. I wanted 2 takeaways here. I wanted to read this because I think there's something very interesting to glean out of this as observers, but there's also something for us to take to heart, I believe. The fact, first of all, that she says, that WWE crushed her love for wrestling is something we've heard recently from other releases over the past few months. We've heard it from Athena as well. How does this company do that? How does a company just put out the fire that brought you there in the first place? I don't want to make any assumptions, right? But there's got to be some of that when it comes to Sasha Banks and Naomi. Wrestling is a weird thing as opposed to theater, music, movies. There's something different about it because you're constantly putting your body through punishment. What else is going to fire you up than passion? Than to go and do that every week? What the hell are you talking about, right? And it's wild to me that the biggest company in the world can't nurture that. Can't nurture your love of pro wrestling. And it might ostracize you for it. And it might make you feel small. Make you feel like you don't belong. And this is not the first account we've heard of this. If we want to push the analysis a little further, I think this is one of the reasons why WWE is turning to, college kids as opposed to trained pro wrestlers or indie wrestlers anymore. Because the indie wrestlers, they all like to wrestle. They want to do pro wrestling. Whereas, the tumblers and the linebackers and the basketball players, they don't know any better. But the second thing that I think is is very, very, very interesting. Is when she says, I realized it's just pro wrestling that I love. It's not a company that I love. And, I wish more fans, at least online, would adhere to that type of mantra. Instead of, caping for companies, corporations, in one case, $1 billion company, stick with the talent. They're the workers. They're the ones who are putting on the shows for you. Though that's the vital resource of any of these promotions, right? It's interesting to hear, it's something that I've said multiple times, but I'm just a dude behind a microphone. But it's really interesting to hear that from the mouth of a pro wrestler. It's not about the companies. It's about pro wrestling. It's about whoever you want to support as a wrestler. What they put on as a performance, right? Who cares about the company? Should never be about the companies. Should always, always, always be about the talent. You see 2 wrestlers doing something amazing in a ring, don't chant AEW. Chant their names. Interesting thoughts from Toni Storm. Let's hop on over to New Japan real quick. Congratulations to Hiromu Takahashi, who is your winner of the Best of Super Juniors 29. It is his 4th overall win, his 3rd consecutive. It is a record that will likely not be erased anytime soon. Hiromu is a special, special guy. I was fully expecting his IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship shot to take place at Dominion in a couple of days on the 12th. Apparently not happening. Are they saving it for Forbidden Door? Bring Hiromu stateside, have him beat Taiji Ishimori, go out a hero. Everyone loves Hiromu. Or, I don't know. I don't know what the plan is. Are they going to save it maybe for Summer Struggle, which is going to be later this summer? It's an interesting one, because my theory is still very much Hiromu is on his way out of the junior division for multiple reasons that I talked about last week. I really think Hiromu's moving on. So we'll see. But the Dominion is usually a big pay-per-view. It's New Japan SummerSlam, right? Essentially, it's their second biggest one of the year, and it's usually eventful. There's stuff that happens. Might be a couple of returns. I know everyone's expecting Kushida to show up. One guy who I'm not pretty sure, but that I feel might not show up this weekend, or might, I don't know. Kota Ibushi. Let's go for a quick update. Supplied to us via the Wrestling Observer Figure 4 online, because a few days ago, New Japan Pro Wrestling announced a 3-month pay reduction for Kota Ibushi and 2 office officials. The salary reductions, of course, result from issues between Kota Ibushi and a New Japan Pro Wrestling booking assistant, which the guys over at the flagship at Voices of Wrestling have identified to be a man known as Kikuchi. I've talked about this when I did my breakdown of the Kota Ibushi situation a couple of weeks ago. But here are the details. New Japan has announced a 3-month pay reduction for Kota Ibushi, company president Takami Obari, and company official Yuichi Kikuchi. Sounds like a dance from the 1960s. Hey kids, do you know how to do the Yuichi Kikuchi? Stemming from issues between Ibushi and company management. In a statement released on their website, New Japan Pro Wrestling announced that after consideration, Ibushi, Obari, and Kikuchi, who is, by the way, never mentioned by name, but this is fairly well known nonetheless, would all receive a 10% reduction in pay for July 2022 through September 2022. Additionally, Kikuchi will be transferred to a different position within the company. Kikuchi had served as head booker Gedo's primary assistant. Ibushi, this is of course all stemming from Ibushi's public frustrations with management following an incident where he appeared at a Just Tap Out event, the Takamichinoku wrestling promotion, on March 4. New Japan Pro Wrestling stated that Ibushi's appearance constituted a breach of his contract, and Ibushi posted screenshots of text messages with Kikuchi that included Kikuchi threatening to fire Ibushi. Ibushi blamed the matter for causing stress that ultimately led to his mother attempting suicide and suffering an injury in her attempt. New Japan had held a press conference on May 27 to publicly address the matter. While they publicly apologized to Ibushi, the relationship between Kota and the company remains strained. Ibushi has been out of action since suffering a shoulder injury in the G1 Climax 31 finals on October 21st, 2021. You know what? I would not be surprised if Kota Ibushi never wrestles for New Japan again. Even after the statement and all of this was put together and released and put out in the press conference and so on and so forth, he was still clearly very disappointed. He felt like there was there was not enough respect that was paid to his mother, and he's ready to walk out. He was ready to leak more DMs. He's not impressed with how President Obari has handled the situation, but this is clearly gone all the way up the Bushiroad ladder. The corporate types, right? The guys who don't get involved in this, because, Ibushi also called out that some people might be involved in a shadowy organization that starts with a Y and ends in a Akuza. And that has repercussions. That's a stain in Japan that you absolutely do not want, because it can be devastating, not just for the people who are directly targeted, but everyone else within the company as well. So it unquestionably sent a tremor. Ibushi clearly doesn't care. From reports and things that I've been able to piece together, as much as he has support, he has a whole bunch of detractors right now. So maybe the locker room is half hostile to him also at this point. I'm not gonna lie, I wouldn't be surprised if Ibushi never wrestled for New Japan again. I really wouldn't. I mean, the guy's 40 to begin with. He's in, mutant-like shape. Like, this guy is, even for people where we're saying, oh, he's in his 40s and he's still doing so well. Like, this guy is in unnatural shape. So, I mean, people are going to go back to DDT, but he even said, I don't want to go back to DDT either. But this is a guy that he will be able to wrestle wherever he wants. And that has always been the Ibushi way. That's always what he's done. Wherever he goes, our boy will be fine. But holy shitballs. This has been a mess of a situation. I do hope everything settles up in the best possible way, though. It's a continuously developing story, if you ask me. Why not one last quick Dominion in Osaka Joe Hall preview, but very, very quickly. I'm not going to break down everything in extreme detail.
Oh, yeah.
The opening match. Oh, well, there you go. Flowman left a super chat that is exactly in league here. So let's just go quickly through this. First match, 6-man tag. Hiroshi Tenzan, Master Wato, and Taguchi will be taking on Aaron Hanare, Francesco Akira, and TJP. Another trios match, Hiromu Takahashi, Tetsuya Naito, and Bushi will be taking on Taiji Ishimori, Ace Austin, and El Fantasmo. Excuse me. Toru Yano will be taking on Doc Gallows in a terribly random match. But all right. I'm sure Doc will be like, yeah, I'll do a Yano match. There's an easy payday. Never Openweight 6-man tag team titles will be on the line. Evil Show and Yujiro Takahashi, the Tokyo Beam champions from the House of Torture, will be taking on the Suzuki Gun crew of Yoshinobu Kanemaru, El Desperado, and Zack Sabre Jr. IWGP Tag Team Championship match as well will happen, where the challengers Great O'Khan and Jeff Cobb will be challenging Bullet Club champions Chase Owens and Bad Luck Fale. We haven't talked about it yet, but we're going to get to it. AEW Interim Championship Elimination Match. Hiroki Goto will be facing Hiroshi Tanahashi. King of Pro Wrestling 2022 Championship match, Shingo Takagi versus Tai Chi. Never Openweight Championship match, Tama Tonga versus Carl Anderson. IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship 3-way match, Sonata and Will Ospreay will be facing current champion Rock Hard Juice Robinson. And the main event, IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, Kazuchika Okada, your champion and mine, taking on Jay White, your favorite and mine. Stacked card, not gonna lie. And Flowman here with his super chat. Thank you very much for the super chat, Flowman. I appreciate it. He says, prediction for Dominion. Jay White beats Okada. Jay versus Hangman at Forbidden Door and play into Bullet Club history. Okada versus Danielson at Forbidden Door, and we all rejoice. A lot of injuries, so on and so forth. We talked about it. Like, there's a bit of an injury bug going on in wrestling right now. Cody, of course, Edge with his orbital bone injury. Scorpio Sky suffered a muscle strain at Rampage on Friday. And CM Punk, of course, the big one, right, has to undergo surgery. That he has to undergo surgery. Rumor is it's his foot. And as a result, a new interim AEW champion will soon be crowned, which will actually be crowned at Forbidden Door. And this is one of these things where the internet sort of lost their mind over when they started announcing it. Look, it was the announcement of the interim, I'm relinquishing the belt. The messaging was extremely confusing. Chris Jericho fucking it up on commentary didn't help. CM Punk could have been just very, very clear about it on Rampage and just made, but you know, a lot of people went nuts when this happens. Oh, what's going on? I don't understand what's going on. But when the dust settled, it seems to me everything became very clear. We're going to have an interim champion, and it's going to be decided at Forbidden Door. Seems simple enough for me, right? And the interim champion, there's going to be 2 guys from New Japan. The winner of that is going to face the winner of a battle royal, and Jon Moxley was the number 1 contender. And it doesn't seem that hard for me to understand. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a genius. It could be that I'm just a genius. And, you know, instead of belittling people, I'm just going to lift myself. I'm a genius. Because once everything started to settle, I was like, okay, this is cool. But everyone was losing their shit. I don't understand. Like, look, it's simple. Battle Royal winner will face number 1 contender Jon Moxley. Over in New Japan, Hiroki Goto is going to face Hiroshi Tanahashi. And the winner of those 2 matches are going to fight for the interim title. Christ! Thank you, chat. Thank you, Jonas Tiger. Nice to see you. Thank you. Chat agrees. I am a genius. Should know this by now. Anyway, this is what's happening. So this is why we're having the AEW interim title match at Dominion this weekend. And hey, Dan Heyman, nice to see you. Welcome to the chat. And between all of us, there's no way in hell that Hiroki Goto is winning, right? I think we all agree that it's Hiroshi Tanahashi that's winning, right? If Hiroki Goto is scheduled to win that match and face Jon Moxley at Forbidden Door, it is a bad business decision. It is a piss poor business decision. Because the Moxley-Tanahashi match has history to it on top of that, because Mox has been gunning for Tanahashi for months. I'm excited for Forbidden Door. But then, I'm very niche, right? And I'm a man. So, of course, these are the things that, because, as we all know, Forbidden Door is not for the casuals, despite the fact that I'm a casual WWE viewer now. But it's not for the casuals. And it's not for women, right? Women can't watch New Japan. Sorry, girls! Let's start talking about Dynamite. But first of all, mark it today, June 9th, as I'm recording this, 2022. I want you to pull out your calendars, your notebooks. If all of you have little notebooks where you take notes on the Mr. Warren Hayes show, write this down. This is the day that I announced that I am over Jim Ross on commentary in 2022. That's it. I'm done. There have been multiple issues over the 3 years or so of Dynamite, of AEW, where I'm like, Jim, a little step behind, but it's okay. He's screwing up names. That happens. I screw up names too. Whatever. I'm at a point now where he detracts from my enjoyment of AEW. And I know a lot of people think it's endearing. Or it's like, having your grumpy old curmudgeonly uncle. No. This is like having my uncle who's sitting next to me watching pro wrestling and hates it and just shits on everything. Because the more you listen to JR over the past few months, the more you realize he dislikes most of the product and he's unable to put it over. And I'm going to underscore this. I'm going to underscore this because the JR Defense Brigade was after me, okay? And, notice me senpai as hard as they could. But I want to underscore something crucial here. I love Jim Ross. I love Jim Ross. He is a bona fide legend in the wrestling business. He is a legitimate, true to form Oxford Dictionary definition legend. Not a WWE definition. A true to form legend of pro wrestling. A couple of days ago, there was people talking about, that Michael Cole was the greatest, was the GOAT announcer. I'm like, no, Michael Cole is very good at what he does, but he is no GOAT. Not when you have the likes of Jim Ross and Gordon Soley out there, who trailblazed and who set the bar. Michael Cole, fine at what he does. He's fine. He's no GOAT. Now the thing here is, like any career of any great one, at some point, you just move on. You just move on. And JR is clearly, at this point, he is clearly overwhelmed by how much the business has changed. And he's set in his ways. He gets boners when he gets boners when he sees Wardlow. No surprise there. He was very excited at the prospect of Pac and Buddy Murphy. No surprise there. There is type. But when it starts getting too spotty, when it starts getting, too much of the lightweights, it's like, oh, they're fast. Yeah, look at that. And I know in the past he's used code. That's fine. Christ, I know. I've read biographies. I know JR uses. I know what the bowling shoe ugly really means. That's fine. But even when he was calling that on Vince's show, he never outright would say, this is awkward, this is bad, this is terrible. Never actually said, this is bad, this is terrible. But he clearly disapproves when wrestlers are blowing things, when the match isn't working, instead of doing what a commentator's job is, and that is promoting what you're watching. If I'm sitting there and commentary team cannot tell me this is good for that, why am I watching? Click. If I'm a casual, that's what I'm doing, right? If I'm a casual, I'm like, yeah, the commentator's right. Click. JR tells it like it is, Warren. That's what the brigade likes to tell me. He's right to say it. He's right to say it. Not when his job is to make sure people continue to watch. If he wants to do op-eds, he can reignite his blog that he had on WWE.com. He has a podcast with Conrad, for fuck's sake, where he can editorialize as much as he wants. But a commentator sitting in the booth is covering for the people in the ring. He's convincing the audience to stay here and say, you know what? Our product is better than the other guys. Otherwise, what is he saying? You know what? Our product is not as good as the other guys. Because never, ever, ever are you going to hear Corey Graves start to shit on anyone who blows a spot. Except that weird moment with Dana Brooke. Or Jimmy, what's his face? Michael Cole. Michael Cole is not going to sit there and go, well, this match is kind of awkward. He's not. He's not. And the most frustrating thing is that I don't think most people realize just how much heavy lifting Excalibur does for this goddamn broadcast. And all people talk about is, oh man, he talks really fast when it's time to promote next week's shows. When he, in fact, is calling the moves, he's throwing to JR. JR, if you re-listen to last night's episode of Dynamite, I dare any one of you to tell me what JR contributed to that show. Last night, I think his greatest contribution was him explaining to us how a single elimination tournament works. Did you guys catch that? JR telling us, well, you know the thing about a single elimination tournament match is that if you win, you win. If you don't, you go home. This is Royal Rumble, over the top rope explanation level for me. It's like, Jesus Christ, man. It's even worse. Everyone knows how a fucking single elimination tournament works. That's how most tournaments work. If we get into a round robin, let's take the time to explain the rules just to make sure everyone's clear. And they have a wealth. AEW have a wealth of fantastic booth commentators. Excalibur's fantastic. Tony Schiavone as a color guy to prop stuff. Tony Schiavone, outside of him and Jim Ross, Tony Schiavone absolutely is bringing his passion of wrestling. You feel that Tony is enjoying what he's watching and he's putting the guys and girls over. JR sitting there grumbling his way through like he's on a fucking podcast like the MrWarrenHayes show. You have Taz that you can bring in at any given moment. Everyone enjoys Taz and Excalibur working together. You can bring in Ricky Starks to do it. You probably don't want to pigeonhole Ricky Starks into commentary because I think he has much more to give. He has such a high fucking ceiling, right? You don't want to pigeonhole him too quickly. But the point still stands, is that you have a fantastic wealth of people that can do what Jim Ross is doing right now better. Now, could they have been as good as Jim Ross in 1997? Probably not. I would say most likely not. And this is not a knock on the career or the everything that JR has brought to the business, the standard that he has created, the golden standard that he has created for pro wrestling commentators everywhere. It's him. But he isn't even bothered to do his research anymore. We have multiple examples of this. Tony Khan brings in a guy from Japan to challenge his world champion on TV. JR, the fucking least you can do is watch a few tapes of the guy so that you can say, yeah, I've seen him before and he's dynamite. Instead of like, well, I don't know what this kid has to offer. He's fighting your world champion. And you as a commentator should be making the audience care by saying, I've seen this kid and he's great. That's why he's fighting my world champion right now. But people are like, well, JR is just saying what he wants to say. Yes, and that's not the place for him. That's not what he's being paid for. And he has legitimately become a deterrent from me listening to commentary on Wednesday nights. I don't think he brings anything relevant to the table anymore. I honestly don't. I'm completely over it. He still does he still tries to get Tony to chuckle along with him when Excalibur calls a Mexican move name. Tope Suicida, Tony. Like, Jesus Christ, man. Excalibur's a fucking pro. Second of all, before we get in, here's another thing. and this is in complete contradiction. All right, let me go over the super chats here first and foremost, because I just remember there's some super chats here that we need to talk about. First of all, Vape Ross Vape, member of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show for 14 months. That's a year plus 2 months. Thank you very much. He used his milestone message here. He says, someone order a Ross. Is that a reference that I don't understand? You can... Ross, as in you're a Ross, and Ross... Okay. I'm still pumped. I'm like, what is he talking about? You're a Ross, Vape, Jim Ross. Let's have a Ross Con. Let's bring everyone together and have a Ross Con. DGMC left another super chat. Thank you very much, DGMC. I appreciate it. He says, Lee, suspenseful David versus Goliath, or Eddie continues tension with Jericho Association Society and BCC. Should have won the Battle Royal. Mox Kyle just felt like a match. Oh, interesting take. That's a very interesting take. I'll talk about that when we get, I'll circle back down. Look, I'll make sure that I don't forget it. I'm going to copy and paste it right here. There we go. Got it right there. Second thing I want to talk about Dynamite before actually getting into Dynamite. And listen, I'm going to follow me here. I know that what I'm going to talk about right here, right now, is going to be in complete contradiction with what I just did, venting on Jim Ross. All right. When are people actually going to start talking about the wrestling in a wrestling show instead of focusing on the nonsense? Instead of focusing on, I don't understand what is going on. We had last night on Dynamite 2 banger matches. And I know, look, wrong choice of words. Because I feel the term banger is thrown around so much, it's devoid of any real meaning anymore. I think, everyone calls everything a banger these days. We had 2 pristine pay-per-view quality matches. Okay? How about that? We had 2 of them last night. I'm a Ross man. 2 of them last night. And what did people get focused on? The All-Atlantic title? What a weird name. The Atlantic Ocean? Why you put China on poster? Oh no, what is going on? And then another Hardy Boys match. While in the meantime, on television, without any build, without just completely sidelining us, we get 2 high quality, good to great matches on our TV that you could easily be like, $60, man, you're going to get these matches. Not even quality matches that could have been on Hell in a Cell, that belonged on a premium live event. And everyone we're going to talk about all the bullshit. We're going to talk about Will Ospreay and how much we hate Will Ospreay, which is fine. Don't get me wrong. I wish some of y'all grew up watching fucking superstars on Saturday mornings and watching, Brutus Beefcake squash fucking, Barry Horowitz and, Jake Roberts squash, local jobber number 62 weekend after weekend after weekend, to realize how spoiled we are. Because all we end up focusing on, instead of the wrestling, is this weird meta of upset instant reactions that we're all supposed to provide because we all have Twitter. And I don't know. And don't get me wrong, I have been guilty of this, and I am trying to change my ways. I'm including myself in this. I'm speaking to myself as well. Trust me. I've been guilty of the hot take, of the quick reaction. But you know what? I've gotten to a point where I'm like, look, I'm going to sit. I'm going to digest this. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to put some context around it. And then I'm going to sit in front of my microphone, and I'm going to tell my podcast listeners / viewers, I'm going to give them some proper analysis, as opposed to flying hot takes right and left. Might not be the cool thing, might not be the optimal thing, but I think it's better overall. Because we're going to sit here and we are going to talk about some excellent matches. We're going to talk about the shit. It wasn't a perfect episode, but we are going to take the time to focus on the matches. Because isn't that why we watch pro wrestling? I think that's why. That's why I don't watch Monday Night Raw. Our girl Kristen Ashley is coming up with a stats piece very, very soon. 25% of the time allotted on Monday Night Raw on a 3-hour show is devoted to pro wrestling, bell-to-bell action. 25%. SmackDown is even less. How do you do a 3-hour show? And a quarter of it is the reason you're tuning in to watch. On Rampage, and I'll tell you what, and it's not even a question of, well, Warren, if we didn't, if Tony hadn't announced, did this shitstorm with his new belt, right? And it's, we would be talking about the matches. And I'm going to give you a big old fashioned wrong. Because on Rampage on Friday, we had a fantastic tag team match at the live Rampage last Friday. Fantastic tag team match. A great squash. And a great women's match, fun main event. No one's talking about it. Because you know what? No one talks about the wrestling. That's why people get mad when I say Tiffany Stratton is not ready for TV. It's like, yo, Tiffany Stratton is ready for it. She is not. Because if we talked about wrestling, you'd realize that this woman is not ready. She has talent. She could probably grow into something, but right now she's not ready. We had the Lucha Bros and the Young Bucks tear the house down on a 10 p.m. Friday night. And it's like, no. Oh, but we're gonna talk for days about how Tony Khan is scatterbrained and all over the place because he's pulling out belts right and left. That we're gonna talk about for weeks and weeks and weeks, though. I've been doing this for a while, and I promise you, I know. And it's not even a question of if you go back. No, I know that you go back into my archives from a couple of years ago, and I don't have this same type of focus. But as I watched more and more wrestling, and as I got more and more involved in analysis and thinking about it, and what do I like versus what I don't like, it just helped define what I want to hear about pro wrestling moving forward. Instead of always the same old bullshit. And the one thing I realized is that we don't talk enough about the wrestling. And I think this is another symptom of 20 years of one single company providing us with sports entertainment who never really put a focus on the wrestling in the first place. Now we have a company that does put wrestling first that delivers week after, and it wasn't just this week after week, we get amazing matches on Wednesday nights. But we're not conditioned to talk about that anymore. We're supposed to talk about the storylines and how they don't connect and how this and what a weird decision and what's this all about, as opposed to sitting around in a nice kumbaya circle saying, you know what, Jon Moxley and Kyle O'Reilly fucking ruled for this, and that reason. Pac and Buddy Murphy was so fucking fantastic. And you know what? They've got another one in them. And I can't wait for the rematch. That's what we should be talking about. Instead of dicking around complaining about... You can do both. You can do both. Because that's what I'm going to do. Because I have takes on the belt situation in AEW. I'm going to talk about it in a minute or two. We got to focus. It can't be at the expense of the reason we watch pro wrestling. And I swear, I promise, it's because of WWE reminding us, convincing us that the wrestling doesn't matter. Wins and losses don't matter. None of this matters. It's the stories that are important. We tell stories. And that's what we ended up always focusing on. I know, because I used to review shows on my podcast, on Fightful. That's how I did it. That's how we all did it. That's what a lot of people still do. What'd you think of the match? Oh, the match was fine. But did you see Seth Rollins drip? All right. Let's keep going here. Let's actually talk about Dynamite. Now that I've aired all my grievances. Now that all my grievances have been aired, let's talk about Dynamite. Started off with the interim AEW World Title #2 contendership Casino Battle Royal match. Do I need to re-explain? Kyle O'Reilly defeated a bunch of dudes to face Jon Moxley later on in the evening. Battle Royals, if you're a longtime listener, you know I think they suck. Not that they suck. I think they're difficult to achieve, to be entertaining. I think the Royal Rumble is the only formula that really works, I find, for multiple reasons. And right up until you start really trimming down the field, I watch Battle Royals. I'm like, all right, you know, there as always a couple of highlights here. Such as Swerve eliminating Keith Lee after Keith Lee saved him earlier, and everyone was like, "Oh, is this a heel turn, or is it just like every man for himself?" Well, we get the answer a little later on when Swerve eliminated perennial babyface favorite Darby Allin. I was like, "No, and I think today Swerve tweeted out or retweeted a gif of him dumping Keith Lee and captioned it "dead weight," right? Swerve's gone heel. I'm here for it. Andrade was the Joker in this one. I don't know why people get disappointed, excited, whatever at Jokers anymore. But I think false. Let me scratch that from the record. I know why. And that's because Tony Khan is the surprise master. Like he always surprise, and he always has to one up himself. He has to bring someone in cool. So he's conditioned us to expect something new, something fresh, something out of the ordinary, something that we were not expecting. Andrade is a guy on the roster. He's like, yeah, he's back. Yeah, he's back, but we saw him at the pay-per-view. He had a pre-tape. It wasn't that big of a shocker. So, but, fine, good enough. I think the whole casino battle royal format is. I always thought it was wonky from the start, from the get-go. I still don't quite. It doesn't quite do it for me. Yuta Wheeler dumps Jake Hager to much joy in the Hayes Ashley household. Team Taz eliminated Takeshita, which is instant heel heat in the Hayes Ashley household. Darby eliminated Bobby Fish. Andrade eliminated Swerve. Wheeler Yuta then dumped Powerhouse Hobbs. Andrade low blows Ray Phoenix to an elimination. Wheeler Yuta eliminates Andrade, and Kyle O'Reilly eliminates Yuta for the win. I enjoyed it. Once we hit the final 8, I thought that was really, really good. And I was like, now we're cooking. And everyone had some great performances. I thought Andrade looked great. Everyone looked great here. Even poor Wheeler in defeat. I was really looking for it. I was like, you know what? This would be really dope if within the BCC, because this is the story they have to tell with Wheeler Yuta, right? Is that Wheeler's in this, he's in the club, and he got in the club because, he fought valiantly against what's his face? John Moxley. I don't know why I forgot his name for a second. And he lost. And Yuta gets thrown into these situations where he has to face John Moxley again. He has to try and beat Mox. And then eventually he does, and that's like his ultimate graduation. That's how I'd tell it. That's how I'd go down. If I'm really doing sports-based presentation, that's how I go about it. And the day Wheeler Yuta defeats John Moxley after a few attempts, so I thought, we might get forced into one here where Utes is going to do his best, but he can't pull it off. But no, it's Kyle O'Reilly. Bit of a surprise, but I was excited for the match. I was really excited for the match. What else do we have? Then we get a video announcing this AEW All-Atlantic Championship title. And commentary then explains that there's going to be an international tournament, mostly comprised of international talent that AEW has already signed, but I still love this shit. I love tournament wrestling. You guys know this. It is starting tonight, and it's culminating at Forbidden Door. So they pulled out the brackets. Buddy Matthews and Pac. Buddy Matthews representing Australia. Pac representing Great Britain. Ethan Page representing Canada. Miro representing Bulgaria. Penta Oscuro, Mexico. Malachi Black, the Netherlands. And 2 members of the New Japan roster. As we mentioned earlier, it's going to be Hiroki Goto and Hiroshi Tanahashi. I saw this and they show the belt. The belt is dope as hell. And I'm clapping my hands. I'm going, I love this. I love this. You guys know I like tournament wrestling. I love tournament wrestling. Okay? I'm like, this is cool, right? Can we bring in some caveats now? I think we can. I think here's the thing. I think it is entirely possible to enjoy this idea and still have criticisms about it. It's been a while since I've used this line. Criticism, true criticism, comes from a place of love. You will never criticize something you do not care about. Something you don't like, that you hate, you're just going to shrug it aside. But something that you do like, pro wrestling, tournaments, ideas, whatever, it's fair to criticize it. Criticism does not equate hate. It always, or at least most of the time, it's a representation of love. Because I love this idea, but we're talking about it in the chat a little bit here, and I completely agree. This came out of nowhere. It's like, what? Like, they announced Buddy Murphy versus Pac without the tournament around it, right? So to me, this feels slapdash booking, just put together very hastily, very, very quickly. And it's like, we got to do something cool for Forbidden Door. Because I like the idea of doing cool things for Forbidden Door. And this is a cool thing. This guarantees, in my opinion, that we're going to have a fun, interesting match between what am I talking about? Between the talents, and I got confused for a second here. The New Japan guys that are fighting here is not Hiroki Goto and Hiroshi Tanahashi. That's for the interim title. I got confused. We don't know who's fighting for this yet, right? We don't. So it could be New Japan, USA guys. We don't know. Like, we'll see what happens. But it feels like it's slapdash booking. It should have breathed a little bit. That was my criticism about the Owen Hart tournament as well. I felt like the booking, the brackets, just hastily put together. We didn't have time to see the brackets and think about them and, evaluate all that. It really feels like Tony Khan just started putting it together and decided like in one night, okay, guys, we're going to put this to press tomorrow kind of thing. Wow. All right. One of the things I like about the G1, the New Japan Cup, Best of Super Juniors, you get your brackets, you get everything all laid out, and then you have like a week, 10 days where you're looking at the possibilities and you're evaluating and you're making predictions and you're thinking about. That's what's fun about tournament wrestling, right? So now we just jump right into it. It feels rushed. It feels rushed, and that's a shame. And I think it's a testament, I feel, to a lot of booking in AEW these days, where I feel things are just like hastily thrown together. Like Tony has his core group of 5 to 6 dudes where he focuses on those, gives them, very precise stories. And the rest of the stuff is sort of like hastily put together. Sometimes it's okay. Sometimes it doesn't. And I feel like in this circumstance here, this could have been announced a couple of weeks ago. Let's say, 2-3 weeks ago, you get this bracket pulled up and you see, oh, there's 2 people from New Japan who's going to be, who could it be? And then just the fun of speculating. Speculating is part of the fun of being a pro wrestling fan. And I like it. And like I said, the tournament is, I like tournament wrestling. Ultimately, for me, it's going to work out. The title, beautiful. Another beautiful title belt that they've put together. It's another title in AEW. It's another title. Now, this reminds me, to a certain degree, when I saw this, the All-Atlantic, and of course the name is weird, right? The name is weird because if you're the All-Atlantic Championship and you're getting people from Japan in on this, I promise you it'll be quicker to fly over the Pacific than it is the Atlantic. Otherwise, if you're going across the Atlantic, you're taking the old spice trade routes, to get there, which I don't think is very efficient. It's a little strange to me. It's a little weird. So I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at the title, and I'm like, this is another belt. And at face value, it doesn't bother me to a degree. But I do understand people who have very vivid criticisms. And this is one of the things where I'm like, yo, a lot of you need to chill the fuck out. But there are a lot of titles in AEW now. And I also get the argument of like, you're giving us stakes. You're having these matches happen and there's stakes to them. So that adds drama. It adds to the storytelling. I completely agree. That's why I love tournament wrestling. I'm all okay with that. I think there is a saturation point when it comes to titles. And I think AEW is it circling the drain, or is it really close to the drain, or is it in the drain? I think the next few months will be very telling, because right now, you have the World Championship, right? You have the tag team titles, if we're talking for the men right now. World Championship, tag team titles, TNT title. Then you have the Ring of Honor tag titles, the TV title, and the Pure title. They're all showing up on TV. That's 6. You have Adam Cole, who's running around with his belt, which is not really a title, but let's just keep the image, right? The picture of someone with a championship belt on their shoulder. So that's 7 titles that are frequently appearing on TV. And then occasionally, FTR might pop up with the AAA titles. We haven't seen those in a while. But, you've got easily 6 belts hanging around TV for that are being contested, challenged for on AEW. Then you have on the women's side, you have the World Women's and the TBS, right? So we have that. I'm all for I enjoy titles, I enjoy tournaments, I enjoy stakes, but I also enjoy when your titles are meaningful, when they mean something. And I think that too many titles on TV eventually is diminishing returns, because then you don't know what titles to care for. Which ones are more important? Why is this one being featured? Because that's what's going on with the TNT title right now. Why is the Ring of Honor TV champion on TV, on Dynamite, more than the TNT champion? That's a fair question. I think that's absolutely fair. So, and on the women's side, well, that's a whole other yarn as well. But, Britt Baker lost the world championship, but she's still walking around with the title on her shoulder. So she still looks like a champion. So who are the champions? Who are they? Who are we pushing forward here? What are we, what titles are going to be important in the long run? And I think there is such a thing as diminishing returns, and we're really, really close. Everyone's making the CMLL joke, and we're not even close to that. But I think everyone with a belt, if everyone walks around with a belt, then I think it ultimately hurts the contenders. It hurts people who don't have one, and it hurts the people who have the more prestigious ones. I think that's part of the equation here. Now, I said that this reminded me of the old NWA International title, WCW NWA International title, which had been set up when they had their partnership with New Japan, and it was an NWA title that was defended between WCW/NWA and New Japan. Now, if this is something that they want to test the waters on, and that the title could be won in Japan and defended like in Japanese, on Japanese soil without any AEW talent, why couldn't this end up, for a couple of months on a New Japan card where it's just New Japan guys fighting each other, and then all of a sudden, whoop, come over. And then I think that has value. I think maybe this was done as a construction, as something to create a bridge between the two companies, cement a relationship in the long run. And that vision makes sense to me if that's what they want to do. If they want to extend, they being AEW, if they want to extend their relationship once they're able to go to Great Britain, for instance, and they want to fight some local guys there, and then leave the title there. Have it fought in, I don't know, Rev Pro, Progress. Rev Pro has a relationship with New Japan, so why couldn't that be extended to AEW? All that kind of stuff. I think that the All-Atlantic title has more value if it is less seen on AEW TV, defended elsewhere, and then eventually pops back up, and then people are like, oh yeah, let's bring this title back, and that's cool kind of thing. Plus it's I can the business aspect of it could have you say smart move, establishes AEW as a true international company. I like it. It's just good stuff. I think there's some positives, but there are potential black holes here that are there that you need to swerve around, I think so. I think. Nick Nutter, nice to see you. Welcome to the chat. Then we get the first All-Atlantic title qualifying match. Pac defeated Buddy Matthews in a fantastic match. This was so good and so crisp and sharp by two guys who are prototypical wrestlers that are able to do everything. Everything. Fly, bump, strength, speed, everything. And that's how they patterned this match. This is how this match was patterned. These guys are equals. They're on the same footing. They think the same way. This was such a good fucking match. And another example of what's the story? The story's happening right before your eyes, brother. It's happening right before your eyes. You've got two excellent, top tier, elite level wrestlers who are coming hard right now and who are on the same level. That rope-assisted tornado DDT by Pac was fantastic. Liger Bomb by Buddy Matthews. Poison Rana by Pac, who wins clean as a whistle, clean as a sheet. Black Arrow with his finisher. No weirdo nonsense. No black mist or referee was distracted bullshit. Clean as a whistle. Why are we not happy about? Why is this not the stuff that we focus on? Great match. Top tier level match. One of the best AEW matches that you'll see this year on free TV. Unquestionably. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. 10, 12. What was the length of this match? Just shy of 11 minutes. Bell to bell. Great stuff. Eddie Kingston cuts a great promo. Where he's like, okay, they gave me a minute to talk. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. No one formats Eddie Kingston's promos. No one. And he calls out Jake Hager, but his real feud in this promo is him with the set manager who's counting him down. Just great stuff. Fantastic stuff. I loved it. Trent Beretta then is in the ring. He's bummed out because yesterday was National Best Friends Day, but his best friends aren't there. Then he starts talking about Roppongi, how Roppongi Vice, he and Rocky Romero deserve a shot at the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championships after all the shenanigans that happened. FTR come out and they say, yeah, you're right, and we'll do this, and so on and so forth. Then United Empire music hits. I'm popping because, I'm a niche pro wrestling viewer and also male. So I know this means Will Ospreay's coming out, which he does. And he comes out, serves as a distraction as his other buddies from the United Empire, specifically Aaron Henare and Aussie Open, run in to beat FTR and Trent Beretta down. There's even a hidden blade by Will Ospreay to put that move over nice and firmly in the spirits of North American pro wrestling fans. I cannot stand anyone who doesn't do it jokingly, because I know some people do it jokingly out there. You know who you are. But I cannot stand people who go out on Twitter. Who are these guys? When in the meantime, Excalibur is telling you exactly who these guys are. What's an Aussie Open? Excalibur says they are one of the top 5 tag teams in the world today. Never heard of them. Well, then tune in on Friday when they have a match on Rampage. I couldn't get excited for this segment. Okay, because you didn't know who they are. And is this going to shut you down? Is where you're going to be like, nope, I have decided that if I don't know who this person is, I am not interested in it. How do you discover anything in life with that type of mentality? How does one not just be curious, right? Just be like, okay, I don't know who these guys are. Let's see how it goes. I don't know why anyone instantly shuts down and like, I don't know who these are, so this sucks. Instead of being like, tag team I've never heard of. Let's go. Show me what you got. The joy of discovering anything, not just in wrestling, man. Music, film, books, anything. Nature. Just going out and fucking seeing things you've never seen before. That's what fucking life is about, man. And you know what? Then you look at these guys wrestle, and if they're not your cup of tea, then come back to me and say, you know what? Aussie Open didn't care for him. Fine. Also, Will Ospreay will never, ever, ever get over in a North American wrestling audience. Ever, ever, ever. Twitter absolutely melted down when he showed up. And there are multiple reasons to dislike Will Ospreay. They're there. They're all out there, from apologizing for his, or being an apologist for his friend that was called out and speaking out, to his oddly misogynistic views, to, him maybe not being the, sharpest knife in the drawer sometimes when it comes to certain decisions, when it comes to his online persona. You can also straight up tell me, I don't like how he wrestles, and, fine. There's multiple reasons. But when I saw Twitter explode last night, when I saw Will Ospreay, and I'm like, this guy cannot work, will never be able to work in a North American company. Never. He's a lightning rod. You've heard me talk about New Japan. You've heard me talk about, review cards, New Japan Cup, so on and so forth. Will Ospreay is a fantastic wrestler. Incredible. It's the kind of thing you have to parse through. Got to figure out where you stand on this. It's hard to deny the immense talent that this guy has, though. But when I saw him show up, I was like, my excitement's a little dampened, because I'm like, okay, well, here goes the minefield. You know what I mean? Adam Page defeated David Finlay after, first we got an interview backstage with Kyle O'Reilly, and William Regal tells him that, violence is going to happen to him or whatever. And Adam Page defeated Dave Finlay. Dave Finlay came out to zero reaction, but I am not surprised. Bless Dave Finlay. That's not the point. He's, no way this guy was over. But you know what? I thought he delivered. I thought this match over-delivered. Adam Page was great. And he is... look, Adam Page is fantastic. Systematically, another great match out of Page. I don't care, what you... If you cannot heap praise on Adam Page as a wrestler, I don't know what we're watching. You must be watching something else. This guy's consistently good. Consistently good to excellent, because he's had it all. He never sucks. In the ring with Dave Finlay, who really, really brought it. I thought he was very, very good. I thought he was fantastic. Great physical match. Dave Finlay worked the leg, hit a big lariat as well. He ate a sack of shit from Adam Page on top of that. Buckshot lariat puts it away, but physical, strong, resilient. And David Finlay came into this match and was like, you know what? I got something to prove here. I'm going to shut a bunch of people up, including Mr. Warren Hayes. I got nothing but good things to say about this match. Great stuff. Absolutely great stuff. Does this mean I think Dave Finlay is going to be signed by AEW? Hopefully not, because I think, okay, let me rephrase that. If he gets signed, makes money, good for him. That's always the thing. I think the roster in the state it's in right now doesn't need a David Finlay. That's the only difference, because I don't think he brings anything that would make him specifically special. But if you wanted a guy who could come in and fill one of these very important plumber roles, that can have great wins with the great enhancement wins over the lower card, but make the top guys look great, he's your man. He's absolutely your man. After the match, Adam Page gets on the microphone. He says, there's a lot I want to say about the AEW Championship. And I'm like, oh. Now be careful, TK, because we were talking about this last week with MJF. Careful, because you don't want everything to suddenly become a shoot or a work shoot. Then you start going down Vince Russo territory. I don't know if this is what Hangman was inkling at, where he's like, oh, I'm dissatisfied too, kind of thing. But let's bring it back. All right? The MJF stuff feels special. It's good. It's well done. The lines are completely blurred, and I love every fucking minute of it. But if this becomes a thing, and I talked about this last week, if it becomes too much of a thing, it all loses its impact, and everything just turns to dust, right? And then we start getting into Vince Russo territory where everything is a work shoot. Anyway, the important thing is that he focused on the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship and challenged Kazuchika Okada. I popped. I'm like, look, if we're not getting CM Punk, because I still maintain this. I'm talking about it for weeks. Still maintain. The match was CM Punk versus Kazuchika Okada. Titles or not, I don't give a shit. The titles complexify, muddy the waters, make it more complicated. I don't care. I'm here for the politics of pro wrestling too. I'm here for the backstage negotiations and the heat and all that bullshit. That would have been entertaining to no end. Would have heard stories about it for the past 20 years. For the next 20 years, would have been fantastic. But look, I understand. Look, circumstances, blah 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 blah. Adam Page, Okada. I think there's a good chunk of history that is really interesting to use here. And ultimately, this is going to be a very, very, very good match. If that's what we get. Because Adam Cole took the mic and he called him delusional. Adam Page, of course, says Jay White might just win the title first and foremost. At Dominion this weekend. We're going to know in a couple of days. And he says, if anyone deserves a shot, it's me because I just won the O1, blah, blah, blah. Do you want me to tell you what my fear is, chat? People listening? I'm going to tell you what my fear is at this point. My fear is that the main event, with this singular promo, I feel that with this singular promo, I fear, that the main event of Forbidden Door is going to be a triple threat. Okada, Cole, Page. That's what I'm fearing. I'm not a fan of triple threats. I'm not, because they're not always well executed. And I like me a good old fashioned one-on-one, especially for a main event when world titles are involved, particularly. You want to know what my deepest fear is, chat? People listening? You want to know what my deepest fear is? Turns into a fatal four-way with Jay White. That would bum me the fuck out. It'd bum me out. I would really, really like a one-on-one match. I think Paige deserves a match with Okada. I think the match with Okada is the prize. It'd elevate him. I think it's great. But I'm just not a fan. And it's not a question of whether they haven't been good or not. I'm not a fan. I like, when it comes to title matches, in particular, give me 1v1. I'm entertained. Look, the women's match at Hell in a Cell, I was entertained by it. I thought it was great. It's a triple threat. I would have preferred a one-on-one, but if you're going to make me go through it, might as well do it like it happened, right? The triple threat with Dino 210, Red Dragon, and the Young Bucks, I thought that was great. I would have preferred a one-on-one, or a 2-on-2 in this case. I'm not, maybe I'm too much of a traditionalist / purist but championship titles, man, it's a challenger, it's a champion. That's it. Let's move on. I'm worried about this now. Now, there could be a way to fix this, and it could be just as simple as Adam Cole versus Hangman Adam Page. Winner gets the shot at the IWGP title at Forbidden Door. And I'm like, problem solved. Nice little story. Nice little build to bring us to the match. I think it's great. I think it's great. And I see in the chat talking about Bryan Danielson should have been with Okada. I am convinced with this, it's a good thought because, I was down that path as well where I was like, look, if it's not CM Punk, it has to be Bryan Danielson with Okada, right? But there's something within me, my little gut, and I don't have any insider information. Trust me, this is not, I'm not Scoopsy dude here, but there's something in my gut, something in my bones that tells me Bryan Danielson is doing the G1 this year, and I think we're going to get Okada Danielson at the very least in a block match, and I think they're going to save that one for the G1, and I think that must be a good one. Wardlow comes to the ring, cuts a pretty good promo, I thought. Says that, he wants to come after the world title, but only if the best in the world is there. And right now he's injured and he's not going after any interim titles. So it's like, nah, I'm going to go. We're going to go to I'm going to go to the TNT title, which I like because I've been harping on this. The TNT title needs to be rehabilitated. It's been bungled with the Sammy Tay Scorpio Sky bullshit. It's been bungled. It's been trash. It feels like a mid-card title. If you're not going to put it on a guy like Danielson to give it that same sheen that Cody was able to give it, that Miro was able to give it, that Brody Lee was able to give it, that Darby Allin was able to give it, then give it to the guy who is currently the number one contender, who's over like crazy, that people think is a monster and will be unbeatable. Put it on him. That is going to rehabilitate the TNT title. We've got time for Wardlow and the World Championship. We've got time. Nothing but time. Nothing but time. Anyway, Scorpio comes out. He's pissed off. And Ethan Page and Lambert push him away. But then we get a pre-tape from Mark Sterling right after this, who says that his class action lawsuit on behalf of the American security personnel, I don't remember what they're called, the phony association, says he's giving him two options: either go to court or wrestle 20 security guards in an elimination match next week. And folks, if this isn't the beauty of pro wrestling right here, like the absurdity of pro wrestling, this is absolutely how the match is supposed to be called. This is how it's called. A 20-on-1 class action handicap elimination match. By God. By God. I love pro wrestling. So when it's absurd like this, we're gonna have Wardlow tossing fools around, dweebs for 10 minutes. It's gonna be great. The Young Bucks are backstage looking very cute. They talk up the fact that they should be champs. And the Hardys come in to talk some shit. Then Dino 210 and Christian Cage come in to talk some shit. And Christian sets up another three-way title defense. No! Between Dino 210, the Hardys, and the Young Bucks, and it's going to be a ladder match. And I'm like, I don't want Hardy Boy ladder matches anymore. I'm done. And I'm totally this guy. I'm being this guy. Bleh. I can't do it. Rick, so nice to see you. Welcome to the chat. Stop saying my girlfriend is fine. Not you, Risco. I'm talking to those of you in the chat. You know who you are. Well, you know what? Pointed out in the chat, I think Dino 210 versus the Hardys alone would have been just fine. And it would have been. But they have to smoke and mirror Jeff Hardy now. That's the problem. The Young Bucks got... Look, the match... The Young Bucks Hardys match at Double or Nothing, when I reviewed it, I told you, I didn't think it was great. And the Hardy Boys did... the Young Bucks did everything they could to extract the best out of the Hardys in that match. And things still went awry. So I don't have the same confidence in Dino 210 all by themselves to do the same with the Hardys. And I'm done with Jeff Hardy and ladders. Not going to lie. AEW Women's World Title match. Thunder Rosa defeated Marina Shafir. I didn't like this match. I thought it was slow. I thought that this was very uncomfortable. Marina Shafir is an enigma for me. I don't understand how someone who has been wrestling for so long is still so janky, especially with someone like Thunder Rosa. Look, this match clicked, and you can go back and watch it because I made note of it. I watched it, and it was like, this match started to click when Rosa took over. When it stopped being, let's do an exchange kind of thing, where Rosa was like, follow my lead. That's when it started to click. But I can't tell you that this, I can't tell you I enjoyed it. I thought it was a bit of a mess. I thought it was slow. And I don't know what you do with Marina Shafir. Because then again, Marina Shafir will head into Bloodsport like she did WrestleMania weekend and tear it up. So I honestly do not know. And her presentation is dull as dirt. She comes out, there's no reaction to the classical music. Everyone is like, no reaction. Polite clapping when her name is announced. And there's so much we could talk about in regards to the women's division again as we keep talking about it, but I understand the necessity for Thunder Rosa to be on TV. Because I don't think she has the benefit of... She didn't have the benefit of a Britt Baker being injured for months and still having this... and working into this heel character that was able to do all sorts of things. Rosa has to wrestle. Rosa got over wrestling. That's what she should do. And it's the same thing with Serena Deeb. So I understand the necessity of her going out and saying, I'm doing an open challenge. Marina Shafir coming in and going... Marina Shafir is such a weird choice. Because Marina Shafir cannot carry a match. What Rosa needs is Rosa needs to look good. She needs Thunder Rosa. She needs to look like Thunder. If she wanted to do an open challenge or like bring in any... She's got friends in Mission Pro that she could have brought in, had instant chemistry with, and just tear the place up. Instead, we get this. Again, the issue that I have, I think one of the main, and I did say one of the main issues plaguing the women's division right now is that it's extremely top heavy. Very talented, star caliber women. Then you have your green recruits, but you have very little in the middle that can bridge between, that can work the plumber role. And we're not going to get more of those type of women if there aren't more women's matches being booked on AEW programming. Otherwise, it's constantly going to be a focus on the titles. The world title, the TBS title, and start a rotation of who's the next challenger, not unlike a certain other promotion with their women's belts. We're not heating anyone up. We're not giving time. And YouTube, dark elevation. Stop it. Stop. We don't watch it. Most people don't watch it. And if you want shit to matter, regardless, if you want shit to matter, you put it on your main show. If the Joey Janela Sunny Kiss feud mattered, they would have put it on the main show. But they didn't want it to matter. After the match, Shafir attacks Rosa and chokes her, and I'm like, oh shit, we are not continuing this. This is not, but Toni Storm came in for the rescue, and I'm like, oh, thank God. And then Toni Storm picked up the belt, handed it to Rosa, but there was the, ooh, your title is so shiny championship person look that they exchanged. And I'm like, okay, now we're cooking. Let's fucking cook, though. So that means heat up Toni Storm, because Toni Storm has been cooled down after losing the Owen. She's been cooled down. Build her up. Now is the time to give her matches. Give her matches with the bunny. Put her in something to heat her up now. Because otherwise, then the booking becomes exactly like the other place. You have your championship, and then it's like, well, now it's your turn to challenge. Now it's your turn to challenge. Now it's your turn to win. We got Jade Cargill backstage, who's interviewed, says nobody can mind her business, and Stokely Hathaway is on her side, and he's like he complains about Anna Jay, and what do they call her? Chris Sadlander, which is the most Stokely joke, because it's not funny. Sadlander, but you know, it's Stokely, so it's charming. And then on Friday we're getting Statlander versus Red Velvet, which should be look, I'm really digging really, really, really digging how Statlander is being pushed right now, and they've got something right now. They got something in that performance a couple of weeks ago on Rampage where she got the audience to turn on Ruby Soho. Ooh, that's special, folks. That's an indication. And finally, the main event. Jon Moxley defeated Kyle O'Reilly to become the interim AEW World Title #1 contender. What a fucking match this was. Brilliant. Right up my alley. Right up my alley. And then the thing here, everyone who was familiar, everyone was like, Kyle O'Reilly's not a top guy, he's not a great wrestler, he can't. The solo run that they tried with Kyle O'Reilly in NXT was so clearly overly WWE produced. You see him in a singles match here with Jon Moxley, and I'm seeing New Japan, Dragon Gate America, Dragon Gate USA, I should say, Kyle O'Reilly, brutal, violent, twisting him up, looking to hurt him. Just fantastic stuff. A fucking great main event. Again, an exciting, brutal fight. Something that makes you get out of your seat. That makes you feel excited for it. Double duty on top of that for Kyle O'Reilly. Hell of a performance. Hell of a night for Kyle O'Reilly. But no, what are we talking about? What are we still talking about? Another belt. That's what we're talking about. Just brilliant stuff. Top to bottom in this match. Jon Moxley being the most Jon Moxley version of himself, while Kyle O'Reilly is demonstrating to anyone who was left wondering, what do people see in him after his NXT run? They're like, oh. And I myself was like, can he still go? Can he still do this? And I still hear people going, man, I can't wait for the Kyle O'Reilly, Adam Cole feud. I'm like, I don't want it. We got it so many times. I don't want it. I think we settled this 2 weeks ago or something. The last great match that Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly had versus each other was in 2010 Ring of Honor. I think that's the last time that they had a good match together. Jesus. What a great 2014 PWG. Thank you, DGMC. I knew you were going to pull that up because you're the guy who had pulled it. That's right. 2014 PWG. That's what we had agreed on. You're right. Fantastic main event. I enjoyed this Dynamite. Because you know what? Because it gives me wrestling. I don't know what to tell you. And we get such quality matches week after week. Free on TV. And everywhere I turn, people are like, well, let's spend the next half hour talking about too many belts in AEW. And no one wants to talk about the wrestling. Jesus Christ. Weekly wrestling inspection comes to a conclusion. Did I say I didn't want to go long tonight? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Hey, thank you all very much for joining me live tonight. Great attendance live tonight. Super dynamic chat tonight as well. Love to see it. Thank you all so much for sticking it through. Clearly you guys were excited about me being on stream for 4 hours and burying a woman wrestler for 20 minutes. I didn't bury her. Come on. But, hey, listen, one last thing. If you are watching this live right now, like the video. If you're watching this on demand, like the video. Leave a comment as well if you're watching this on demand. Tell me, let's talk about wrestling. Open up any topic. Anything I brought up here that you agree, disagree with, let's go. I'll chat with you. As long as you're civil and polite and you don't call me a flutengloben. You can check that out on Google, what it means. Then I'll chat back with you without an issue. That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you for listening on your favorite podcast application as well. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great start to your weekend. Better than that, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.